Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us today. It is 12 o'clock, so we will go ahead and get started. So my name is Chandler. I am one of the admissions counselors here at Pacific University, covering for Gina today. You usually see her lovely face at these events, but I am helping out today. So I will be kind of the host and moderator for today's Q&A session. And we will have a couple of admissions counselors here to answer your questions. Just a couple of updates. We wanted to let you know this session was originally listed as a housing session, and that has actually been rescheduled for June 9th. So same time, same place. You can use the same Zoom link, and we will meet June 9th at noon for a housing-focused Lunch with a Boxer session. And for today, we will be doing an admissions Q&A. So we're here to answer any and all questions that you may have about Pacific. And then our website is up to date with all of the upcoming sessions over the next couple of weeks. So feel free to check back there. You can actually look at the previous sessions on our YouTube channel, which is also linked on our website. So let's go ahead and get started. We will introduce the admissions counselors that are here to answer your questions. So Maddie, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Maddie, one of the admissions counselors here in undergraduate admissions at Pacific, and I get to work with any of the students that are coming from the Portland metro area, so Multnomah County here in Oregon, as well as Western Washington, along with students from Colorado and Utah. And I'm actually from Utah, so I love to work with families that are considering sending students or students that are considering going someplace that's a little more green year round. So I love to talk about, what opportunities there are to stay locally, what to experience here in Portland, as well as I do live in the Portland metro area. So I can also answer questions related to visiting, what to expect, such as not pumping your own gas at the gas stations here in Oregon. So please feel free to put those questions into the chat as well. But again, I'm Maddie, one of the admissions counselors.
Awesome. Thanks, Maddie. And Donna.
Hi, everyone. My name is Donna Ramos-Barzana, and I'm also one of the admissions counselors here at Pacific. And I work with all of the students from Bay Area, California, and also Hawaii. So very much sunshine states, and a lot of students coming in from those farther distance like myself. I'm an alum of Pacific. So if you have any questions about adjusting to a new state, especially coming from places like Hawaii and California or anywhere else outside of Oregon, can definitely share some perspective on that. And I also was a former high school counselor as well. So if you have questions about kind of what to expect before you arrive on campus, just kind of going through the process. I know for many of you, it's graduation season. So I know there's a lot of questions that you folks may have about those kind of things, preparing for that, what to submit. So Maddie and I are definitely excited to answer your questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Donna. And I realized I forgot to kind of share the students that I work with as well. So again, my name is Chandler Patterson. I am also an admissions counselor here, and I support students coming to Pacific from Southern California, Sacramento, Central Coast California, as well as the Seattle area in Washington. So happy to support you, similar to Maddie and Donna with that transition to Oregon. I'm actually from the Portland area, so I'm very familiar with Oregon and all it has to offer. Awesome. So we will go ahead and jump right into our Q&A portion of this session. You're welcome to drop your questions directly in the chat so that everyone can see them, or if you would prefer to be anonymous, you can send them to me directly in that chat. So feel free to start adding those. And yes, just to clarify, thanks, Derek. Today is a general Q&A with the admissions counselors for any questions you have regarding Pacific. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. Maddie, would you like to start us off with why do I need to set up my Pacific email?
Yeah, great question. The Pacific email is actually going to be your access to so many different things on campus, kind of interconnected with the different departments. It's how you'll get the majority of your communication from, housing, advising, faculty. So setting up your Pacific email is going to be working with our technology help desk. So many of you have probably been advised to set up a PUNet ID, PUNet ID. That's your login information. It's a combination of first name, or last name, and some of your student identification number. If you don't have that or you're unsure how to get that, you can contact our technology help desk directly. You can contact them via email, which is help@pacificu.edu, or you can call them directly, 503-352-1500. They also have a Zoom drop-in session if you wanted to drop in. Their meeting ID is actually their phone number. So 503-352-1500. And so they're going to help you actually create your PUNet ID, which is going to give you access to your Boxer mail. And that's going to be where you are actually creating, like for myself, it's madison@pacificu.edu. So it will be, your PUNet identification information at pacificu.edu. Some students will end up creating another alias if they want, such as mine is Madison. So that is set up through the technology help desk. If you ever have trouble getting in or get locked out, go directly to the technology help desk. Many of them are alumni. Some of them are even students. So they're really, really helpful. And they're also really great to ask about, what computers to get when you're coming in this fall. So setting up your access to the email. When you do that, you'll be triggered to get information from housing, from academic advising. Make sure to check that weekly throughout the summer, and maybe even get into a habit of checking it daily, because all communication from other departments are going to go to that email now. We'll continue to update you as admissions, but majority of departments will be utilizing that Pacific email.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Maddie. Okay, Donna, I will hand it over to you for the next question. Where can a student locate the residency waiver form?
Yeah, so it's going to be on our housing website, and we're going to go ahead and put that into the chat. So if you have any questions about anything, I know a lot of students are wondering, questions about picking a roommate. I know many of you may be on our PACU 2025 Instagram. Many students are trying to find that perfect roommate. So a lot of them are having questions like, oh, how do I select a particular roommate? And that's not going to happen until end of this month. So you're going to get an initial housing application, which we'll link in the chat in just a moment. And then the next application will be a time when you can select the roommate that you met, maybe on Instagram or maybe on one of these Zooms that we had. So all that information is going to be coming soon. If you have any questions about anything from, the layout, the rooms, it's all going to be on that website. But any specific questions or accommodations, you can contact housing@pacificu.edu and ask those specific questions regarding, your living situation and any accommodations you may need. Another thing that also comes up for students is that they're wondering which dorm they're going to be having. And that's a kind of a popular question, especially if you had a chance to visit campus or watch maybe a virtual tour. That's not going to be coming out possibly till towards the end of June. So that's not going to be happening right now. We know that it's randomly sent out for students in different dorms. So they're not necessarily, they can't say, oh, I really want Walter, I really want Cascade. It's going to be random for their freshman year. But there are instances where towards maybe into the fall, they can possibly look at the different options to switch. So if maybe your housing situation doesn't work out, maybe you're not comfortable in the dorm that you're in and you really had your eye on Cascade or on Walter, there's going to be options for you to switch. And you'd be working with your RA to see what kind of options there are. And also if your roommate situation doesn't work out, that's all going to happen well into the fall. But yeah, all those kind of questions regarding to housing is at housing@pacificu.edu.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Donna. Maddie, when do students find out which voyage program they've been accepted into?
Yeah, great question. And I love that this family is interested in voyages. If there's one thing that I feel like I want to do at Pacific, it's a voyage, for sure, for sure. Meeting new students, being a part of that community early on and challenging yourself, I think is such a cool opportunity for the students here. So voyages, there are still some spots available. So we can provide in the chat a link to that voyage page. I'll actually put it in there. Now, when you sign up for a voyage, you're actually giving your preference of, I think, 3 different trips. And our voyage directors are with Justin from Outdoor Pursuits, which I recommend jumping back onto if you have more questions, but they take those considerations into account when they start to plan for the trip. And then they notify the student directly of which trip that they have been put into, probably closer to that August date. So I know that Voyages does move in a little bit earlier. I believe it's August 20th. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it's August 20th that would be move in early for Voyages. And you're going to know well before then which voyage you've been selected for. I am going to leave the exact date up to Justin and his team. I know that they are working diligently to, get as many students as they can for safety protocol involved in those trips. So you'll be hearing from them soon. Again, that's probably going to come directly to your Pacific email. So make sure you've set that up, but also check that email that you've been communicating with us and other departments as well. So I'm excited. I hope to hear about those voyage trips once you get back.
Awesome. Thanks, Maddie. Donna, this next student had applied for a talent scholarship specifically for photography. Do we know who the student could contact to see the results or when they'll be out?
Yeah, the students should have received notification at this point, but what we'll do is I'm going to put the contact information for that particular professor who works with students interested in photography in that application, and I'll send you a private message so you can contact them directly and see, what those what the results were from that scholarship. So I know that some students may be wondering if they received a scholarship. So definitely let us know if you haven't heard from a professor or a particular scholarship in talent so that we can connect you and find out the results. And just to let you know too, students, even if you haven't received a particular scholarship this year, definitely work with these professors in that field because there may be opportunities in the future, or maybe being a tutor, maybe having a particular kind of on-campus job. I know some students may not have received a scholarship initially, but worked closely with that department and were offered a position as a student to work. So it's a really great thing for students to be able to add those kind of opportunities on their resume as well. But I'll go ahead and put it in a private message.
Awesome. Thanks, Donna. And Maddie, this next question is regarding signing up for classes. So when will students get their list of courses that they'll be able to sign up for? And is there a course catalog that students can see the total units of each category they need for their degree to begin planning their 4 years of academics?
Yeah, great question. This sounds like me. Like, how can I plan? Like, it's just, way before my classes start. How can I plan? Where are they going to be located? Where are the bathrooms in those buildings? I love that this family is so excited to start that next step. The first step in getting access to planning out that schedule is going to be for the student to fill out the academic interest survey. This is coming directly from our advising and career center here at Pacific. So once you've set up that Pacific email, it's going to trigger an email from our academic and career advising center that's going to ask you to take a survey about your interests. It's going to be, pretty open. You can put in there multiple interests. This is not declaring a major. This is you expressing what you might be interested in. This is giving our advising center a heads up on who they should pair you with for your summer advising appointment over the summer. Those start in July and go into August. This is a one-on-one appointment that you'll have with an academic advisor to go over, any AP classes that you've taken exams for, any IB classes, any of those dual enrollment credits that you might be bringing into Pacific. They're going to look at those to then be able to make recommendations on what you should take. So to plan it out right now, I would push the brakes just a little bit, because it may be that you're bringing in credits that allow you to gain access to those upper division classes a little bit earlier. There's also going to be the fact that freshmen, are going to be picking their classes after those second, third, and fourth year students have selected their classes. So you will get the classes that you need, maybe not the ones that you totally love and desire, but there will be time for that during your 4 years here at Pacific. So what I can say is that the website, does have access to those academic catalogs, absolutely. But your best resource is going to get to know that advisor in that appointment, coming in with those ideas that you have of what you're interested in, to be able to navigate picking your schedule. And you will leave that appointment with your schedule. So then you'll be able to plan, for maybe a part-time job. If you're a student athlete, there will be some ways for you to plan accordingly, and you can let your advisor know during those appointments. So the first step towards getting those classes and getting access to what you might need is going to be to fill out the academic interest survey that came to your Pacific email, and the advising center will follow up to make that appointment with you. And then they're going to sit down and plan it all out with you. So whether or not you're a planner or you need someone to guide you, we're going to support you in that process. So yeah, if there's further questions on advising, definitely throw them into the chat. I know I've been getting quite a few students asking about that.
Awesome. Thanks, Maddie. And Donna, this question kind of goes back to what you were talking about regarding housing. So this student has been talking to someone that they're excited about being roommates with, which is awesome. So on the residence website, the student has the option to invite that roommate. Do they do that now or at the end of the month, as you were referring to earlier?
Yeah, so I'm glad that the student has found a great roommate. That's always the scarier part about the college experience. They're like, picking classes are like secondary, like who am I going to live with? Who's going to be my friend? So that's like a very important thing for a lot of students, especially during these times. So this is definitely something that you'll be able to request that's exactly right. At the end of this month, they're going to send out a new form for you to be able to select that roommate that you met online or through these Zooms, definitely.
Awesome. Thanks, Donna. And I just wanted to point out that Maddie and Donna have been dropping links into the chat if you hadn't already seen that. So kind of referring back to some of those questions, linking you to that website. Is Pacific, Maddie, this one's for you. Is Pacific University admissions available to help incoming freshmen with scholarships outside of Pacific U, and more specifically with letters of recommendation?
Okay, good question. So kind of two parts to that one. Is admissions available to help with outside scholarships? Absolutely. We, each of us have unique backgrounds. Donna comes from high school counseling background. Chandler has a lot of experience in working with current college students. And some of us have worked with high school students as they transition. So utilizing us as a resource, spending time chatting with us about those concerns you might have, those fears, and picking our brain is absolutely something that you can do. We are a resource to this, students and families, not only, now, but definitely over the 4 years that you're here. Another great resource for outside scholarships is going to be our financial aid office. Scheduling time to meet with your financial aid counselor if you haven't done so already. They're available via email, phone, Zoom. They are a wealth of knowledge as well. They oftentimes are working with students to recommend good websites to go through. Never sign up for any sort of scholarship search that asks you to pay anything. Be a little bit hesitant on that. And also be aware that as soon as you sign up to get notifications from them, it will be daily, if not every single minute, which for some students is helpful and for some it is not. But another great resource is to follow our financial aid office on Instagram. They do post outside scholarships that they become aware of through their office. I believe that there was one on there a few months ago for pet owners. So anyone who has a pet could sign up and apply for this scholarship. So that's a great resource. As far as getting letters of recommendation, I think that if the student or family member is asking about utilizing Pacific admissions counselors as a letter of reference, I don't know if that's the question, but that would be kind of up to the individual admissions counselors. But keep in mind that typically for those scholarship applications, you want to find someone that can truly speak to, maybe it's your academic experience in the classroom. So utilizing those connections that you have in high school, but you can always reach out to us and ask us questions. Keeping in mind, as Donna has said earlier, there will be continuing scholarships once you're here at Pacific that our financial aid office will advise you to apply for every year. And you'll continue to apply to the FAFSA every year as well. So we'll just keep adding those scholarships on each year that you're here at Pacific, but great question on outside scholarships. Donna.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you, Maddie, for that great answer. And I just wanted to add a couple of things. So students, as a friendly reminder, like Maddie was saying, we accept all outside scholars throughout your 4 years. So oftentimes what we see a trend, students, is that freshman year, you're applying to all these scholarships, and sophomore, junior, senior year, it's kind of like, I don't really want to apply, I'm so exhausted. And we see that and we get it because there's a lot going on. So just as a friendly reminder, if we have any parents here too and family members, if you could kind of give like a little nudge and say, hey, your sophomore year, let's continue to look at scholarships. And I know that there's a lot of websites online, and when you're looking at those scholarships, sometimes you're competing against the whole entire nation, which can be overwhelming. As a note, a look within your community, look within your state, even local businesses, a lot of times they'll be offering various scholarships, even though it's $300 or $1,000 one time. Your applicant pool is so much smaller because they're looking to support students within their community. So even when I have students who will go to the mall and realize, oh, all these scholarships still available, or they'll go to a local restaurant. So try to utilize opportunities within your community that are not as much advertised nationwide as an scholarship opportunity.
That's a great point, Donna. And I'll add one more thing too, just that a lot of scholarships end up going unawarded. So don't feel like, there's always a chance that you could be considered. And sometimes no one applies thinking that, there's so many people applying and then the money ends up not being awarded to anyone. So just apply for anything and everything that, sounds even remotely interesting to you or like it might apply to you. All right. Donna, this next question for you. During study abroad semesters, how are talent scholarship requirements met, or do the students lose the scholarship during study abroad?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think during your advising appointment, definitely letting your advisor know that, hey, I'm interested in studying abroad. I know during this pandemic, the study abroad opportunities are kind of on the fence right now. We're still trying to figure out when we're able to send our students study overseas. We're hoping and anticipating sometime soon, but definitely letting your advisor know that's something you're interested in so they can map out your classes, not only for that particular scholarship, but also more importantly, your academic program and maybe things that you might want to major in and minor, so we can just kind of get everything set up for success. So maybe you'll realize that, oh, I can actually double major and still study abroad and get out in 4 years. So really trying to let your advisor know ahead of time if that's something you're interested in, and hypothetically when you'd like to study abroad. Another thing is to definitely let your talent scholarship person know. I know that there's a lot of students who do study abroad who have a talent scholarship of some sort, like a completely unrelated. So they'll have like a math scholarship and they'll go overseas to something that is not related to math, but they're still able to maintain that scholarship. So definitely letting your department head for that scholarship know. If you don't know who that is, definitely let us know so we can connect you with them. And just to kind of put that out there as something that you want to have as an opportunity while you go to Pacific. So they may say, hey, the first 2 years I might need you for various things, but you know what, maybe spring of your junior year is a perfect time that you can go ahead and do that. So the more communication that you have, the better that we can help you and plan out your 4 years to have all the experiences that you want.
Awesome. Thanks, Donna. Maddie, next question for you. Are there good running paths near campus, or do I need to use the track?
Yeah, great question. I know that I am not a fan of the track, the repetitive motions around that. So yes, there are great running paths around Pacific's campus. So, right on campus, you do have access to, I believe it's a 1 mile loop that will take you around all of the athletic facilities back into a park that's completely paved. So that's a really easy options for students to gain access to right outside their dorm. You don't have to drive anywhere. Okay, it's a half mile. So I have to do a few of those. But, just off of campus, you do have access to the many different scenic paths that are preserved around the local area. There are nature reserves locally. Some of those you might have to drive to in case you don't want to run an extra 2 miles to get there and back. There are actually some really great running trails located out into the Tillamook Forest as well. So really experiencing that Pacific Northwest. There is a great a trail called Vernonia Banks Trail, which are two towns located near Forest Grove, and it's a 40-mile bike path and running path that I have done several times, and it's got a good amount of traffic, but definitely beautiful. You're back there in a lot of preserved areas. Now, whether or not you want to go into kind of the Portland metro area, there's also some really great running up in the hills in Portland as well. So there's lots of different places around Forest Grove to get a run in. Just the other day, I was on campus and there was a group of students running together. There was probably like 5 or 6 of them, way too fast for me, but it's also fun to run with groups of students as well. So many will get together to run.
Awesome. Thanks, Maddie. I just went to the Tillamook Forest this weekend as well, which is pretty close to campus. You would probably need to drive, but and went on a really awesome hike there. So if you're not so much a runner, but you're looking for hiking, that's also which is me, that's also very close to campus. Awesome. Thanks, Maddie. Donna, kind of going back to study abroad, when doing the study abroad program, is it required or not for the student to be fluent in the language of that country, even if they're still currently studying the language at Pacific?
Yeah, this is a great question because I know students get nervous. They're like, oh, do I have to know, how to communicate completely, or can I, still use a translator or something like that? We don't expect you to be fluent in that language. You are required to take classes to be able to have basic conversations. So that may be up to 2 semesters within that language. So we have study abroad coordinators that can help you with figuring out, okay, what would be the best level to be at to study abroad in that particular country. I do know, just as a friendly reminder, that there are places where you can speak English, right? You don't have to learn a new language in order to be abroad. So that's something to note too, because some students will say, I really want to go abroad, but I'm not really great at learning new languages. And so just to note that you don't have to, oh, thank you, Derek. We have our study abroad coordinator information in that chat. So go ahead and reach out to them. I know that a lot of students, they feel like, okay, as long as I can communicate and have basic knowledge on maybe reading and writing, they're able to feel comfortable on that campus. And just to let you know too, there are people who are going to support you when you're studying abroad. It's not like you're going to be completely by yourself in another country. It's another school that houses students from the US and are able to support you while you're studying abroad. So there's all kind of resources to make sure that you have a enjoyable and safe experience while being abroad.
Awesome. Thanks, Donna. Maddie, I have a housing question for you, and I'll ask you 2 parts. The first is, do students need an Ethernet cord in the residence halls, or is campus wireless? So we'll start with that.
Yes, it is wireless, and you'll gain access to all of the different, there's several different Wi-Fi platforms. Obviously, I don't work at the technology help desk. What I can tell you is that there's several ways that you can log into the internet. And if you can't get in, talk to the technology help desk. I call them constantly for many different things. But what I do is I have my work laptop set up, and then it's a remembered device located on our secure network. And then I've got my phone also connected, but it's pretty easy to bring in any sort of guest or get that process started. So yeah, that will be a part of your welcome packet.
Awesome. Thanks, Maddie. And kind of along the same lines, do students living in the dorms ever bring video games like an Xbox?
Yeah, definitely. So students can honestly bring a lot of what they want to bring. Now, you will be living with someone, so keeping that in mind. There are, as far as like game consoles, you can absolutely bring them. You will need to bring a TV to hook that up to. There are some TVs available to students in the rec rooms, the hangout rooms in all of the residence halls, so you can connect up to that. And some students will do that to, watch Hulu together and binge a show, or play video games together as a group of friends. Now, that also is the case for, your roommate. Keeping in mind that you do have someone else that you're living with. So some students will coordinate, hey, are you planning to bring a TV? Are you planning to bring a mini fridge? Do you need two 40-inch TVs in there? My younger brother would say yes. So it's up to you and your roommate, but coordinating on some of those things so that maybe you're not both bringing them is a great way to have that conversation organically with your new roommate before you might even meet them. So yeah, really the housing department says that you can bring a lot of different things, just making sure that you're not bringing anything that might catch on fire. So just a general rule of thumb, if you left it on in your room, could it light on fire? You can't bring it. Yes, Donna.
Awesome. Yeah, I know that what to bring is kind of a really big question for a lot of families. We do know we see a kind of a trend that students bring more than they need, because we'll see them during the holidays take a bunch of boxes and suitcases back home, and they're like, oh, I thought I was going to need all this stuff. As a friendly reminder, it is half a dorm room, and you can see the dimensions on the housing website to kind of see what is going to be included. So just kind of generally speaking, you're going to have storage area, cabinets, you're going to have a desk, a wooden desk, drawers there, a chair, you're going to have the bed frame, the mattress, the closet. I think that's pretty much it, what you're going to be having. So, everything else you're going to bring. We definitely see students who decorate their room looking like a model home from IKEA. And we have some students who still have boxes at the end of the year, still unpacked. So kind of that variation, but we do know that a lot of students will bring a lot more. And just as a friendly tip, Amazon Prime is something that a lot of students take advantage of. So it's only going to be, the two-day shipping. So a lot of students they'll wait and kind of see what they may need. They'll kind of have the basic things, when they move in, but they'll say, okay, I'm going to, get shampoo a little later because I have some like a travel size, and I'll figure out what kind of school supplies I may need when I start class. I'll order my books a little later just to see, what I exactly need. So a lot of students will wait, and that 2-day shipping is really helpful because it comes straight to the mailroom and they can just go ahead and pick it up. And sometimes delivery can be even within 24 hours, depending on the site. So that's something to note. And students, when you do register for your classes, you're going to get your class schedule, which you can use as a student discount for that Amazon Prime membership. So it's like $50, as opposed to like $100 some dollars that you typically have to pay. So it kind of gives some little shopping tips. And if you're from out of state, no sales tax in Oregon, just as a reminder. So a lot of families will also just create little carts, from Walmart, Target, Costco, wherever you prefer to shop, and they'll just pick it up when they arrive. So they don't have to go from aisle to aisle and figure out what they need. If you like to do that, that's totally fine, but it just makes everything quick and easy so that you folks can just enjoy and maybe go to lunch or dinner and enjoy that time as you move in.
Awesome. Thanks, Donna. And Donna, this question is for you. When we are picking our roommates, so kind of back to that roommate timeline, do we have to hit the invite button on the residency website, or do we talk to people through the FAQ Instagram page? or could they do both?
Yeah, so you definitely want to invite your particular student on the page, the resident, or when you're filling out that form that's going to be at the end of the month. You definitely want to communicate to the other person through that Instagram page to say, okay, we're going to recommend each other, right? So you have to both recommend each other. You can't just put like, I want to room with Maddie, and Maddie's like, no, I'm actually rooming with Chandler. So you want to make sure that the both of you will be putting your first and your full name on there, and also your ID number. That's also a popular thing that you're going to need to submit, because believe it or not, we have people with the same names who are coming in as freshmen. So that's something that you want to make sure you exchange so that you can put that on that housing at the end of the month.
Awesome. Thanks, Donna. Maddie, when is the deadline for applying for additional student loans?
Oh, that's a great question. Donna, you may have to chime in here as well. My understanding is that students can continue to accept or decline different loan amounts. So you do not need to accept the full amount. You can work and coordinate with you and your family to decide how much in loans you want to take out. And students pretty much have until, I believe, I want to say the end of August in order to be able to accept or decline any specific amounts in their loans. Private loans outside of Pacific vary a great deal in what sort of deadlines they have, but I can say any student that's been offered a federal loan through their financial aid package here at Pacific, such as those unsubsidized and subsidized loans, you'll want to have that figured out the best that you can, approaching your first bill, which is typically the middle of August. The middle of August is going to be your first bill. So you'll want to have when it's due. So you'll want to have a good idea of what you're going to take out. Now, if there's any concern on additional funds coming in a little bit later, so you're not sure what to take out, that's where connecting with your financial aid counselor, Griffin or Stacy, is going to be the best way to set you up for success as far as a long-term financial plan. So for any family that has questions on that, we'd love to connect you with them. So feel free to message us or Chandler, we can get their name later. But Donna, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I know a lot of us are currently working with families as things are starting to get closer, right? Graduation is upon us, and now they're trying to figure out, okay, let me just make sure I have everything lined up financially. Just like Maddie said, August 15th is going to be the first time you're going to have to pay for your bill. Typically, it's August 15th and also January 15th. So those are the two big times for you to pay your bill for your tuition. There is an option if you work with our business office to create a more monthly payment plan if you feel like it's better for your family to pay month to month, or maybe 4 payments, each quarter. So that's something that you want to work with our business office to figure out the best plan for you to pay for that cost. But we are currently working with families, and so ideally we'd want to have that taken care of by August 15th, or at least to have something in place. And again, like Maddie was saying, communicate that with your financial aid counselor so they can alert certain departments if necessary that you made an extension or something like that. Another thing that you want to remind you to do is definitely want to fill out the medical waiver form, which will be available soon. If your child is covered under you for medical insurance while they're attending for their freshman year, you want to fill out that waiver, because it's about, I would say, close to about $3,000 of a waiver. So you won't have to pay that for their cost of attendance. So be sure to put that on your to-do list to fill out that waiver to remove that part of your bill.
Awesome. Thanks, Donna. Donna, I think you're next, right? Maddie, I asked you the last one. Okay, awesome. I keep losing track. We're all just collaborating here. Donna, can students have a car on campus as a freshman?
Yeah, it's actually the great thing about, with our smaller school, the parking prices are not as high as you would see it maybe at other institutions. So it's $50 for an entire school year. and freshmen can bring cars. So that's something to note, that some schools will not allow freshmen to bring cars on their campus. So you are allowed to bring cars as a freshman, and $50 is not that bad of a price. And I always tell students that as a reminder, because I come from an out-of-state perspective, remember there's no sales tax in Oregon. So some students, what they'll do is purchase a car maybe at some point down the line in Oregon because of the no sales tax. And just kind of a little pro tip is, I know students, they don't really like to hear this, but I try to tell them, maybe the first semester, try your best to kind of, just kind of get situated first, right? Get to know the campus more, get to know the surrounding community, the environment, learn how to have public transportation, make friends with cars, at least for that first semester. Because there are some students that we'll see, they'll park behind Night Hall in admissions and their car will never move for like 3 months. And we'll be like, hey, there's moss growing on your car, just FYI. And they're like, I just don't have the need for it right now. I'm just so busy. And sometimes maybe in the springtime, that might be a time when they're like, yeah, I'm able to, I'm in a groove now. I'm ready for a car. So I just tell students, try your best, at least for that first month or first semester, to try and be as active as possible. And maybe during the holidays, then you can kind of have that conversation with your family and say, okay, now I think I'm ready to bring my car up. But yeah, it's just a little tip that we notice when we're working with students, especially with the car situation.
Awesome. Thanks, Donna. Well, that just about wraps up our questions for today. I just wanted to reiterate that the housing session has been moved to the June 9th Lunch with a Boxer session. So again, June 9th at the same Zoom link, same password at noon Pacific time. We will stick around if any of you have remaining questions or questions you'd like to ask more one-on-one. And then just as a reminder, we will be meeting next week with Dr. Brent Johnson, for our Lunch with a Boxer session about the first year seminar. So there's the information for that one. But again, thank you all so much for being here. And Maddie, Donna, Derek, anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
Yeah, just wanted to add the answer to the question in the chat. Are the beds and desks able to be raised? Beds, yes, are able to be raised. Desks, I do not believe are able to be raised, but you can bring your own chair and adjust accordingly. If any further accommodations are needed, definitely connect with the housing department to get any accommodations you need. Great question, but yeah, thank you so much for coming, Donna, Derek.
I just saw one other question just pop up right before that, Maddie. Sorry, I just want to make sure. Just a question about lockable drawers in the dorm room. We actually don't have them in the dorm room, but we do have some students who will purchase like a safe, and they'll place that in their dorm room. Definitely letting your RA know, so your resident assistant, to talk about any specific things that you may need to be in a safe place, and they'll figure out the best way to do that, especially when you're talking about medication and money. They just want to make sure that everyone's safe with whatever they need. With the mattresses, it's extra large twin. Now, just as a fun fact, it's a little longer. So when you're buying, memory foam toppers, or you're buying bed sheets, extra large twin. Okay, so go ahead and have fun shopping.
Thank you so much, Maddie and Donna.
Thank you, Chandler.
And thank you, Derek, for dropping those links for everyone in the chat.
Thanks, everyone. See you soon.
Have a great day, everybody.